Country trash. Are you trying to dirty my floors with that cheap dress? The mansion door slammed shut right in my face, throwing me out into the freezing Christmas night. My daughter-in-law's cruel laughter echoed in my ears like knives tearing through what little pride I had left. My son looked away. Said nothing. They had just thrown their own mother out into the snow, because I didn't look elegant enough. What they didn't know was, they had just made a fatal mistake. Because when her boss walked up, bowed respectfully, and asked, "Is the dress you're wearing the original Valenti dress from 1995? I've been searching for this dress for 20 years. I simply nodded. The laughter stopped instantly. Everyone turned to look at my daughter-in-law in horror. That's when she'd finally understand the real price of her contempt. My name is Martha. I'm 65, a retired widow. When I think back on that night, all I can hear is the howling wind. And strangely enough, I didn't feel cold. I only felt that terrifying stillness, the kind that comes right before a storm. At that moment, I remember I stepped out of the taxi and stood at the foot of the driveway, clutching the gift box I had prepared with all my heart to my chest. My son's house loomed ahead, golden lights spilling from every window. Jazz drifted out, mixed with the sound of laughter. It was Christmas Eve. My heart raced as I walked the heated path, smoothing the velvet dress Eleanor, my best friend, had lent me. For once, I felt like I belonged. I rang the bell. The chimes echoed inside. The door opened. It wasn't a servant. It was Emily, my daughter-in-law. Dazzling in silver, diamonds at her throat. But the second her eyes met mine, her smile vanished. "Martha," she said coldly. She blocked the doorway with her body, effectively cutting off my view of the party inside. A blast of warm air, scented with expensive cologne and roasted turkey, washed over me before the wind snatched it away. "Merry Christmas, Emily," I smiled, holding out the cookies. "I hope I'm not late." "The traffic." She didn't take the box. Her eyes raked over me, up and down, settling on my dress with a look of pure, unadulterated disgust. "What on earth are you wearing?" Her voice was a hiss, low and venomous. My smile faltered. I touched the velvet collar instinctively. It's a dress Eleanor lent me. It's vintage," I thought. "Vintage?" She let out a dry, sharp laugh. "It looks like something you dug out of a dumpster. My God, Martha. Mr. Sterling is going to be here in 15 minutes. This is a VIP networking event, not a soup kitchen line." The insult hit me like a physical blow. "Emily, please. I just wanted to look nice." "You look like a beggar trying to play aristocrat," she snapped. "That fabric screams, cheap knockoff. It's offensive. You're going to embarrass me. Again, Emily?" David's voice came from the hallway. My heart leaped. My son. He would fix this. He would tell her she was being unreasonable. David appeared behind her, holding a crystal tumbler of scotch. He looked handsome in his tuxedo, his hair perfectly gelled. But when he saw me, his shoulders slumped. He didn't smile. He looked tired. "David," I breathed. "Please." Emily turned to him, her face twisting into a mask of long-suffering patience. "David, handle this. Look at her. I told you she wouldn't fit in. Sterling sees this mess, and he'll think we're running a charity. My promotion is on the line." David looked at his wife, then at the floor. Finally, he looked at me. His eyes were shifting, refusing to hold my gaze. "Mom," he mumbled, swirling the ice in his glass. Maybe Emily's right. It's a very high-end crowd tonight. That dress, it's a bit much. A bit old." The air left my lungs. "David? It's Christmas. I'm your mother." I know, he said, rubbing his neck. "But we can't have a scene. Not tonight." Emily crossed her arms, reclaiming control. "Here are your options, Martha. Since you're already here, you can go around to the back. The service entrance. You can sit in the kitchen with the catering staff. They have plenty of food, and you'll stay out of sight until the guests leave." I stared at her. The kitchen. With the help, like a dirty secret. "And the other option?" I asked. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. "Hollow." "You leave," Emily said. "Go home. We'll Uber you some leftovers tomorrow." I looked at David one last time. I waited for the spark. I waited for the man I raised to step forward and say, "No. She stays. She is my mother." But he just took a sip of his scotch. He shrank back into the warmth of the hallway, letting his wife stand as the gatekeeper. "It's just for one night, Mom," he whispered. "Don't make it difficult." Something inside me shattered. It was a quiet break, like a glass cracking under pressure. I looked down at the box of cookies, his favorites, oatmeal and raisin. I bent down slowly, my knees popping in the cold, and placed the box on the welcome mat at their feet. "I won't sit in the kitchen," I said softly. I stood up, straightening my spine. "I am not a servant, David, and I am not a stain on your reputation." "Suit yourself," Emily said, already reaching for the door handle. "Bye, Martha." "Goodbye, Mother," David murmured. "Goodbye, David." Slam. The heavy door closed. The lock clicked with a finality that echoed in the silence. I stood there on the porch. The wind howled around the pillars, biting through my coat, stinging my cheeks. Inside, the music swelled. I heard the muffled, cheerful chords of Jingle Bell Rock. I heard a burst of laughter, warm, happy, shared laughter. They were celebrating. They were happy I was gone. I turned around and faced the long, dark driveway. Snow began to fall, settling on the black velvet of my dress. The dress they called trash. The dress they called a disgrace. I had no car, no ride, just the cold, long walk to the main road. I took the first step. Then another. It was Christmas Eve. The night of family. But as I walked away from the golden lights of the mansion, into the biting darkness, I realized the truth. I didn't have a family, not anymore. I was alone. And it was very, very cold. The taxi ride back to the city was a blur of neon lights and wet pavement. I paid the driver and climbed the 3 flights of stairs to my apartment. It was a small place in a brick building that had seen better days. But the moment I unlocked the door, I breathed easier. The air here smelled familiar. It smelled of lavender, laundry detergent, old books, and safety. I didn't turn on the main lights. I just switched on the small lamp by the window. Slowly, carefully, I peeled the coat off my shoulders. Beneath it, the black velvet dress still felt magnificent. I walked to the mirror in the hallway. In the dim light, the fabric swallowed the shadows, making my skin look pale, almost porcelain. "It's just a dress," Emily had said. "Garbage." But it wasn't. I unzipped it with trembling hands and hung it on the back of the bedroom door. I ran my hand down the length of the velvet. It was soft, like the fur of a black cat. My mind drifted back to 2 days ago, the phone call with Eleanor. "You are going," Eleanor had commanded, her voice crackling with energy even over the phone from Paris. "And you are not wearing that gray suit you've had since 1998, Martha." "I don't have anything else, Elle," I had replied, feeling small. "Maybe I just shouldn't go." "Nonsense. I'm sending you something. It's special. It's been sitting in my climate-controlled storage in New York. I want you to wear it. Think of it as armor." Armor. I looked at the dress now. It was supposed to protect me. Instead, it had become the target. I sat down on the edge of my bed. My gaze fell on the framed photograph on the nightstand. It was David, 10 years ago, on his college graduation day. He had his arm around me, squeezing tight. "I did it, Mom," he had whispered that day. "I'm going to make it big, and I promise, you'll never have to worry about a thing. No more double shifts, no more penny pinching. I'll take care of you." I picked up the photo. I traced the glass over his smiling face. "You promised," I whispered to the empty room. "You promised you wouldn't let me be sad." But the sadness hadn't started tonight. Had it? I closed my eyes, and the memories came flooding back. Uninvited, sharp. I remembered the first Thanksgiving Emily hosted. I had spent 2 days making my signature pumpkin pie. When I brought it to the table, Emily had wrinkled her nose. "Oh, Martha," she had said, laughing lightly. "We don't do refined sugar here. It's poison for the skin. But thank you for the effort." She had pushed the pie to the far end of the table, behind the floral arrangement. "And David, what had David done?" "Mom, you know Emily is health conscious," he had said, shrugging. "He didn't eat a slice. He let it sit there, untouched, until I took it home in a Tupperware container. Then there was the time I was hospitalized for the flu. Emily didn't visit because hospitals are full of germs. David stopped by for 10 minutes, checking his watch the whole time. Tonight wasn't an accident. Tonight wasn't a sudden explosion. It was just the finale. I had been blind. No, not blind. I had been willful. I chose not to see it. I chose to believe that my silence would buy their love. I thought if I made myself smaller, if I didn't complain, if I smiled through the insults, they would eventually appreciate me. To keep the peace, I had told myself, don't cause trouble, Martha. But peace at the cost of dignity isn't peace. It's surrender. My eyes snapped open. I looked at the photo again. The boy in the picture was gone. The man who stood in that hallway tonight, watching his mother being kicked out into the snow. He was a stranger. A weak, spineless stranger who valued his wife's mood over his mother's humanity. He wasn't a victim of Emily. He was her enabler. I stood up to hang my coat properly. As I shook it out, something fluttered to the floor. A small, cream-colored envelope. It must have fallen out of the garment bag Eleanor sent, and I had shoved it into my pocket without noticing. I bent down and picked it up. The paper was thick, expensive. On the front, in Eleanor's sweeping, artistic handwriting, was my name. I opened it. To my dearest Martha, the note read. This isn't just a dress, it's a statement. Wear it and remember who you are. You are the woman who raised a family on her own. You are the woman who survived the hardest winters. You are a queen. Do not let anyone dim your light. Shine, darling. Shine so bright it burns their eyes. I read it again. And then, the dam broke. I sat on the floor, clutching the note, and cried. I didn't cry for the party. I didn't cry for the cold. I cried for the years I had wasted trying to please people who looked down on me. I cried for the Martha I had lost. Eleanor, thousands of miles away, saw more value in me than my own son did. Queen, I whispered. The word felt foreign on my tongue. But it also felt right. I wiped my face with the back of my hand. The tears stopped. The sorrow in my chest began to harden. It cooled into something solid. Something cold and heavy, like steel. I looked at the dress one last time. It wasn't a rag, it was a masterpiece, and so was I. I stood up. My knees didn't crack this time. I walked to the kitchen and poured a glass of water. I drank it in one long gulp. Okay, I said aloud. The silence of the apartment didn't feel lonely anymore. It felt like a clean slate. I wasn't going to hide. I wasn't going to fade away. David thought he could buy my silence with a few leftovers? Emily thought she could erase me with an insult? They were wrong. I placed Eleanor's note on the kitchen counter, anchoring it under the salt shaker. Tomorrow, I wouldn't call to apologize. I wouldn't call to beg. Tomorrow, I would go back. Not for the party, not for the food, but for the respect they stole from me. I turned off the light. Darkness filled the room, but for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of it. I was ready for the morning. The morning sun was bright, bouncing off the piles of dirty, plowed snow on the roadside. It was a harsh, exposing light. It showed every crack in the pavement, every stain on the world. I parked my old sedan a block away. I waited until I saw Emily's silver Mercedes pull out of the driveway, speeding off toward the city. I wasn't here to fight with her. I knew that was a losing battle. I was here for David. I walked up the path. The salt on the concrete crunched under my boots. I rang the bell, not the timid press of last night, but a firm, long push. It took a while. When David opened the door, he looked terrible. He was wearing sweatpants and a wrinkled t-shirt. His eyes were bloodshot, and he smelled faintly of stale bourbon and coffee. Mom? He blinked, shielding his eyes from the glare. What are you doing here? It's 9 a.m. We need to talk, David, I said. I didn't wait for an invitation. I stepped inside. The house was quiet. The wreckage of the party had been cleared away by the cleaning crew, leaving the space sterile and empty. It felt like a hotel lobby, not a home. Can't this wait? David groaned, turning his back to walk into the kitchen. My head is splitting. I followed him. The kitchen was massive, dominated by a white marble island that looked as cold as an iceberg. He poured himself another cup of coffee. He didn't offer me one. David, I started, standing on the other side of the island. I want to talk about last night. He sighed, a long, exaggerated sound of exhaustion. Mom, please. Emily is already furious. She spent half the morning ranting about how you ruined the mood before the party even started. I don't have the energy to rehash it. Ruined the mood? My voice rose, just a fraction. David, your wife kicked me out into a snowstorm. Because of a dress. Do you understand how humiliating that was? I am your mother. He took a sip of coffee, wincing at the heat. You're being dramatic. You always do this. Dramatic? I gripped the edge of the marble counter. The stone was freezing against my fingertips. I am talking about respect. I am talking about basic human decency. I raised you to treat people with kindness. Where did that go? David set the mug down hard. Coffee sloshed over the rim. Look, Mom, he snapped. You have to look at it from her perspective. This is her world. Appearance matters, branding matters. When you show up looking like that, it reflects on us. It reflects on me. He looked at me then, really looked at me. But there was no warmth in his eyes. Only irritation. You're just too sensitive, he continued, waving his hand dismissively. You take everything personally. Emily was stressed. She's managing a multi-million-dollar portfolio. She doesn't have time to coddle you. I felt a cold knot tighten in my stomach. Coddle me? I asked for a seat at your table, David, not a throne. You need to grow up, Mom, he said. The words were a slap, a son telling his mother to grow up. The world has changed. You can't just expect respect because you're Mom. You have to fit in. He ran a hand through his messy hair. Here's what needs to happen. Emily is back at 6. I want you to call her. Apologize. I stared at him. You want me to apologize? Yes. To keep the peace, he said, avoiding my gaze. Tell her you didn't realize the dress code. Tell her you were tired. Just smooth it over. I have to live with her, Mom. If you make her happy, you make my life easier. I looked at this man, this stranger in my son's skin. He was bargaining away my dignity for a quiet evening. And if I don't? I asked softly. He didn't answer immediately. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a white envelope. It was thick. He slid it across the marble counter toward me. It stopped inches from my hand. What is this? It's $500, David said. He tried to sound generous, but his voice was flat. Take it. Go to the mall. Buy some proper clothes. Something modern. Something that doesn't smell like old storage. I looked at the envelope. It was crisp, clean. And please, he added, taking another sip of coffee. Next time, maybe check with us before you come over? We're very busy people. The silence in the kitchen was deafening. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator. I could hear the beating of my own heart, slow and heavy. He wasn't just dismissing me, he was paying me off. He was using money to cover up the ugly truth. He thought $500 was the price of my pride. My hand hovered over the envelope. I thought about my rent, which was due next week. I thought about the heating bill on my kitchen table. I needed that money. He knew I needed that money. But then, I remembered the note. Queen. I didn't touch the envelope. I looked up at David. You think this fixes it? It helps, he shrugged. Just take it, Mom. Don't be difficult. I realized then that my son wasn't just weak. He was gone. He had been swallowed whole by this house, by this lifestyle, by that woman. I was no longer his mother. I was a liability, a problem to be managed with a checkbook. I pulled my hand back. I don't want your money, David, I said. My voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. Fine, he huffed, picking up the envelope and tossing it onto the microwave. Leave it. But don't come crying to me when you can't pay your heating bill. I won't, I said. I turned around. I walked out of the kitchen. I walked down the hallway where family photos used to hang, now replaced by abstract art that meant nothing. Mom, he called out after me, sounding annoyed that I wasn't following the script. Mom, don't walk away when I'm talking to you. I opened the front door. The air outside was still cold, but it felt cleaner than the air inside. I didn't look back. I got into my car, my hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. He had chosen his side. And today, for the first time in my life, I chose mine. Before we continue, allow me to ask you a question. If your child used money to silence your self-respect, would you take it or give it back? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I spent the morning at the sink. The velvet dress, the beautiful midnight velvet, lay on the counter. I had found a stain near the hem, probably from where the snow had melted, mixing with the dirt of my son's porch. Or maybe it was just the grime of the city taxi. I dabbed at it gently with a damp cloth. I was terrified of ruining it, but I couldn't return it dirty. That wasn't how I was raised. You borrow something, you return it in better condition than you found it. I packed the dress into a box. I taped it shut. My hands felt heavy, clumsy. It felt like I was sealing away a part of myself, the part that had dared to feel like a queen for a few hours. I walked to the post office. The air was gray. The holiday cheer from the streetlights seemed dim, like a bulb about to burn out. When I handed the package to the clerk, I felt a strange sense of finality. "Insurance?" he asked, not looking up. "Yes," I said. "Please." I walked home. That was when I noticed the eyes. It started in the lobby of my apartment building. Mrs. Higgins, a woman who usually stopped me to talk for 20 minutes about her cats, was standing by the mailboxes. When she saw me, she didn't wave. She pulled her coat tighter around herself and looked down at her shoes. "Hello, Brenda," I said, trying to keep my voice normal. She jumped. "Oh, hello, Martha." She didn't make eye contact. She fumbled with her keys, desperate to get the mailbox open. I have to go. Soup on the stove." She hurried toward the elevator, leaving me standing there. My stomach twisted. "Paranoia," I told myself. "You are just tired, Martha. You are overthinking it." But it happened again at the corner store. The cashier, a young girl named Sarah who usually saved me the best coupons, looked at me with something that wasn't friendliness. It was pity? No. It was wariness. Like I was a ticking bomb. "Just the milk today, Martha?" she asked. Her voice was too loud. Too cheerful. "Yes. Just the milk." I walked back to my apartment, the gallon of milk heavy in my hand. The silence of the hallway felt oppressive. I was fumbling with my keys when my phone buzzed in my pocket. It wasn't a call. It was a notification. Then another. Then another. I got inside and sat on the sofa. I pulled out my phone. A message from an old friend. "Linda, Martha, I just saw Emily's post. Is everything okay? Do you need help?" My heart hammered against my ribs. Emily's post? I don't use Facebook much, mostly to look at photos of my friends' grandchildren or share recipes. But I opened the app. I didn't have to search far. It was right at the top of my feed. Emily had posted a photo. It was a selfie of her and David, looking sad, tired, and remarkably noble. The caption was long. "It breaks my heart to share this," it began. I read on, my breath caught in my throat. "Many of you have asked about the incident at our Christmas Eve party. We tried to keep it private, but rumors are spreading, and we want to set the record straight. We love David's mother very much. But sadly, her mental health has been declining rapidly. Last night, she arrived in a confused state, wearing tattered clothes, screaming at guests, and threatening to destroy the event. We had to make the heartbreaking decision to ask her to leave for everyone's safety." I dropped the phone on the cushion next to me. Tattered clothes? Screaming? Destroy the event? I stared at the wall. The white paint seemed to blur. "I didn't scream," I whispered to the empty room. "I didn't threaten anyone." I picked the phone up again. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely scroll. The post had over 400 reactions, sad faces, caring hearts, and the comments. "Oh, Emily, you are so brave to deal with that. Dementia is so hard on the family. Sending prayers." I saw her at the store the other day. She did look unhinged. "You did the right thing, protecting your home. Toxic parents are the worst." Hundreds of strangers, people who didn't know me, people who didn't know I baked cookies for the local shelter, people who didn't know I had worked 2 jobs to buy David his first car. They were all judging me. They were painting a picture of a crazy, senile old woman who ruined Christmas. And then, I saw it. Among the hundreds of likes, there was one that made my blood run cold. "David Roberts likes this. My son." He hadn't written the lies, but he had stamped them with his approval. He had seen his wife call his mother confused and dangerous, and he had clicked like. It wasn't just a betrayal. It was an erasure. They were rewriting my history. They were taking away my sanity. I felt a sudden wave of dizziness. I leaned back, gasping for air. Was I? The thought crept in, insidious and dark. Was I confused? Maybe my voice had been louder than I thought. Maybe the dress really was ugly. Maybe I was the problem. Everyone agreed. Hundreds of people agreed. My son agreed. No, I said, clutching my chest. No, I know what happened. But my voice sounded weak. A knock at the door made me jump. I didn't want to open it. I wanted to hide. I wanted to crawl under the covers and never come out. But the knocking persisted. I opened it a crack. It was Mrs. Higgins again. She looked guilty. "Martha," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. She held up her phone. I saw what she wrote. "Is it true? Did you really threaten to hit her?" Hit her? I stared at her. "Brenda, I brought cookies." Mrs. Higgins looked at me, her eyes searching my face. For a moment, I saw doubt, but then she glanced down at her phone again, at the polished, professional words of my daughter-in-law. "Well," Mrs. Higgins said, taking a step back, "you know, getting help isn't shameful, Martha. My aunt had. Episodes too." "I am not having an episode," I snapped. Mrs. Higgins flinched. "See? There is no need to yell. I was just trying to be a good neighbor." She turned and walked away fast. I closed the door. I locked it. Then I slid the deadbolt. Then I put the chain on. I was trapped, not by the snow, not by the walls, but by a story I didn't write. I walked to the window and looked down at the street. People were walking by, living their lives, but now, when I looked at them, I wondered, did they see the post? Do they think I'm crazy? I sank onto the floor. The isolation hit me like a physical weight. David hadn't just kicked me out of his house. He had kicked me out of society. He had labeled me broken so he wouldn't have to feel guilty about throwing me away. I pulled my knees to my chest. The apartment was silent, but in my head, the comments were screaming. Senile, toxic, dangerous, unhinged. I covered my ears. "I am not," I sobbed. "I am not." But for the first time, I wasn't sure if I believed myself. The text message arrived on a Tuesday. It was short, clinical, like a diagnosis from a doctor you barely know. "Martha, given the recent events and your instability, David and I have decided it is best to pause all visits. We are thinking of starting a family soon, and we cannot have this kind of negative energy around. Please do not come to the house. We will contact you when we think you are ready." Sent by Emily. Read by me. Silence from David. I didn't reply. I put the phone down on the coffee table, next to a stack of unpaid bills and a half-eaten piece of toast. For the next 3 days, I didn't leave the apartment. The world outside went on. The snowplows scraped against the asphalt. The garbage trucks grumbled in the alley. People went to work, bought coffee, laughed, argued, but I was no longer part of that rhythm. I sat in my armchair by the window, wrapped in a knitted blanket. I watched the gray sky turn black, then gray again. I felt heavy, not sad. Sadness is a sharp thing. It has edges. This was different. This was a fog. It was a numbness that started in my toes and worked its way up to my throat. Maybe they were right. The thoughts circled in my mind like a vulture. Maybe I was losing it. Maybe I was just a bitter old woman who didn't know her place. Maybe I should just accept it. If I stayed quiet, if I admitted I was confused, maybe David would let me see my future grandchildren. Maybe that was the price of admission. I looked at my reflection in the dark window pane. I looked gray, faded, a ghost in my own living room. "It's okay," I whispered to the glass. "Just let go, Martha. Stop fighting." It was easier to drown than to swim. I was ready to close my eyes and let the darkness take me. I was ready to become the senile mother they wanted me to be. And then, the silence shattered. My laptop, sitting open on the dining table, lit up the dim room. A video call request. I stared at it. I didn't want to answer. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I wanted to disappear. But the ringing was persistent. It was demanding. I dragged myself up. My bones felt like lead. I sat down in front of the screen and pressed accept. The screen filled with light. Martha. It was Eleanor. She was sitting in a sun-drenched room, a balcony behind her overlooking the terracotta roofs of what looked like Italy or France. She looked vibrant, sharp, alive. Everything I was not. "Hello, Elle," I croaked. My voice was rusty from days of disuse. Eleanor didn't smile. She wasn't holding a glass of wine or waving hello. She was holding something black. She pulled it close to the camera. It was the dress. Midnight velvet. "Martha," she said, her voice low and dangerous. I just received the package. I took it out to steam it. She brought the fabric right up to the lens. On the delicate velvet, near the hip, was a stiff, dark patch. The stain I had tried so hard to clean. I need you to tell me exactly what happened, Eleanor said. And don't you dare tell me this is mud. I know fabrics, Martha, and I know chemistry. This is sugar, tannins, alcohol. I looked away. I felt the shame burn my cheeks. I spilled something, I lied. I was clumsy. I'm sorry, Elle. I'll pay for the cleaning. I'll pay for the dress. Stop it, Eleanor snapped. I flinched. Look at me, she commanded. I looked up. Her eyes were fierce, piercing through the digital connection. You have never spilled a drop of red wine in your life. You are the woman who taught me how to hold a teacup without rattling the saucer. You treat beautiful things with reverence. She lowered the dress. Who did this? She asked. The dam inside me, the one holding back the truth to protect my son, to protect the last shred of my pride. It began to crack. It doesn't matter, I whispered. It matters to me. Eleanor slammed her hand on the table. This dress is a masterpiece. But you know what? You are my best friend. And someone hurt you. I can see it in your face. You look like you've died, Martha. I let out a sob. One single, ugly sound. I started. Then I stopped. Say it, Eleanor urged. Her voice softened. Tell me the truth. Just this once. Don't cover for them. I took a breath. A shaky, ragged breath. It was Emily, I said. The words tasted like ash. Before she slammed the door, she had a glass of Cabernet in her hand. She said the dress needed some color to match my cheap attitude. And she flicked it. She flicked the wine at me. I closed my eyes, reliving the moment. The cold splash on my hip, the smirk on her face, the way David had looked away, pretending he didn't see. I had wiped it off in the taxi, telling myself it was an accident. But it wasn't. I tried to clean it, I cried, tears streaming down my face. I tried, Elle. But I couldn't get it out, just like I can't get her words out of my head. They think I'm crazy. Everyone thinks I'm crazy. Silence. I waited for Eleanor to be angry at me for ruining her dress. I waited for her to tell me I should have moved faster. Instead, I heard a sound I didn't expect. Laughter. Not happy laughter, but a cold, sharp, terrifying laugh. I opened my eyes. Eleanor wasn't looking at the dress anymore. She was looking at the camera with an expression I had never seen on her. It was the look of a general who had just found a reason to go to war. She threw wine, Eleanor repeated slowly. On midnight velvet. She stood up. She walked to the window of her hotel room and looked out at the European skyline. Martha, she said, her back to me. Wipe your face. Right now. Elle. Wipe your face. She ordered. She turned around. You are not crazy. You are not senile. You are a victim of a very small, very nasty bully. She walked back to the screen and leaned in. She thinks she broke you, Eleanor whispered. She thinks she can throw you away like trash. She thinks she has won. She has won, I said weakly. I have nothing. Elle. No family, no reputation. No. Eleanor shook her head. She made one fatal mistake. What? She messed with the wrong dress, Eleanor smiled. It was a wolf smile. And she messed with the wrong best friend. Eleanor checked her watch. Pack a bag, Martha. Just the essentials. You're coming to stay at the Plaza Hotel in New York tonight. What? No, I can't. I'm flying back, Eleanor said. My flight leaves in 2 hours. I wasn't planning on coming to the States until spring, but plans change. She picked up the dress and draped it over her arm. You wanted to give up, didn't you? You wanted to let them write your ending. I nodded. Well, too bad, Eleanor said. Because the story isn't over. In fact, the fun part is just beginning. She ended the call. I sat in the silence of my apartment. The screen went black, but something had changed. The air felt different. The heaviness in my chest had shifted. It wasn't gone, but it was. Someone. Lighter. I wasn't alone. Someone knew the truth. Someone believed me. I looked at the window again. The reflection was still gray, still old. but there was a spark in the eyes now, a tiny, faint spark. I stood up. I walked to the bedroom and pulled my old suitcase from the closet. I wasn't sure what Eleanor was planning. I wasn't sure if I had the strength to fight. But I knew one thing: I wasn't going to die in this armchair. Not today. There are times when we want to give up because we are just too tired to fight. But right then, the truth knocks on the door. Have you ever had a friend pull you back from the edge of the abyss? Share your story with me in the comments. The suite at the Plaza Hotel was larger than my entire apartment. I sat on a velvet sofa that was the color of champagne. Outside the window, Central Park was a dark rectangle in the glowing grid of Manhattan. It was quiet here, expensive quiet. When Eleanor walked in, she didn't just enter the room. She claimed it. She had arrived from the airport an hour ago, looking impeccable in a trench coat and sunglasses, despite the long flight. She had ordered tea, room service, and, most importantly, she had hung the midnight velvet on a dress form in the center of the living area. "Drink your tea, Martha," Eleanor said, pacing the floor. She held a tablet in one hand and a macaroon in the other. "We have work to do." I looked at the dress. The stain was still there, a dull blemish on the hip. I said, my voice steadying. "I still don't understand why you flew all the way here. I could have just sent you a check for the cleaning. Or the replacement." Eleanor stopped pacing. She looked at me over the rim of her glasses. "Replacement?" She laughed. It was a sharp sound. "Martha, do you know what this is?" She walked over to the dress and touched the shoulder gently. "This is a Valenti original from the 1995 Midnight Collection. There were only 3 made. One is in a museum in Milan. One was destroyed in a fire in London. This is the last survivor." My cup rattled against the saucer. "The last one? It's not just a dress," Eleanor continued, her eyes gleaming. "It is an icon. It was appraised last year at $120,000. I choked on my tea. $120,000, she finished for me. "And you know who the underbidder was at the auction where I bought it?" I shook my head, too stunned to speak. "Arthur Sterling," Eleanor said. The name hung in the air. "Sterling?" I whispered. "Emily's boss? The CEO of Sterling and Partners?" "The very same," Eleanor nodded. "The man is obsessed with vintage fashion. He has been trying to buy this dress from me for 5 years. He calls my assistant once a month just to check if I'm dead yet so he can buy it from my estate." I sat back, my mind reeling. Emily had called it garbage. She had called it a rag from a charity bin. And then, she had thrown cheap wine on an object her own boss considered the Holy Grail. "Do you see the irony, Martha?" Eleanor sat down next to me. "Emily didn't just insult you. She insulted the one thing in the world that could destroy her career if her boss found out." "So," I hesitated. "We tell him? We sue her for the damage?" "No," Eleanor said firmly. "Suing is messy. It takes too long. And frankly, it's too kind." She leaned in close. Her perfume smelled of citrus and steel. "We are going to use the oldest tactic in the book. The Trojan horse. We aren't going to fight from the outside, screaming at the gates. We are going to walk right through the front door." "But I'm banned," I reminded her. "Emily said no visits. Emily doesn't control the guest list for the New Year's Eve gala," Eleanor smirked. "Arthur Sterling does." She tapped her tablet. "I just got off the phone with Arthur. I told him I'm in town. I told him I'm finally willing to let him see the dress. Maybe even discuss a sale. I told him I'm bringing a guest. A very private, very elegant woman who is currently modeling it for me." "Me?" I pointed at my chest. "Modeling?" "Exactly." Eleanor stood up, but not the Martha who cries in her kitchen. "We need a new Martha. A Martha who looks like she owns the building, not the one scrubbing the floors." The next 48 hours were a blur. I expected it to be painful. I expected to feel out of place. But Eleanor didn't take me to a place that tried to make me look 20 years younger. She took me to places that made me look timeless. First, it was the hair. "No more dyeing it brown to hide the gray," the stylist said, looking at my roots. "We embrace the silver. Silver is power." He cut it short, into a sleek, sharp bob that framed my jawline. When he spun the chair around, I didn't recognize the woman in the mirror. She looked fierce. She looked like a CEO. Then, the skin. Then, the posture. Eleanor hired a coach, a retired Broadway actress, to teach me how to walk. Chin up, the woman commanded, as I walked across the hotel suite. You are not apologizing for your existence, Martha. You are taking up space. When you walk into a room, the air should shift. I practiced until my feet ached, back and forth, shoulders back, eyes forward. No shuffling, no hesitation. By the afternoon of December 31st, I was exhausted. But I was also electric. I stood before the full-length mirror in the suite. The dress had been professionally treated by a specialist. Eleanor flew in from Chicago. The stain was gone. The black velvet swallowed the light, making my silver hair shine even brighter. I wore diamond earrings, real ones, lent by Eleanor. I looked expensive. I looked dangerous. How do you feel? Eleanor asked, standing behind me. I looked at my reflection. I remembered the woman standing in the snow just a week ago. That woman was sad. That woman was a mother begging for scraps of love. This woman in the mirror? She didn't need scraps. She was the whole feast. I feel. I paused, searching for the word. I feel ready. Eleanor handed me a glass of champagne. Good, because the car is downstairs. Wait, I said. A sudden wave of nerves hit me. What if David stops me? What if Emily makes a scene? Let her, Eleanor said coldly. If she makes a scene, she digs her own grave. We have the ultimate leverage. You are wearing the bait. Mr. Sterling will be so mesmerized by the dress, he won't let anyone touch you. You have diplomatic immunity, my dear. She checked her phone. I just received the confirmation. Your name is on the VIP list. Under anonymous guest of Madame Eleanor. Anonymous? Mystery breeds interest, Eleanor winked. Let them wonder who the elegant silver-haired woman is. Let Emily panic when she realizes she doesn't know who she's dealing with. We walked to the elevator. The doors slid open with a soft chime. I stepped inside. The metal walls reflected my new silhouette. For years, I had tried to be the good mother, the quiet mother, the invisible mother. I thought love meant making myself small so my children could feel big. But tonight, I was done shrinking. I said as the elevator began its descent. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, she replied, staring straight ahead. Save it for when we watch the fireworks. The doors opened to the lobby. The winter air rushed in from the revolving doors. It was New Year's Eve, the night of new beginnings. We walked toward the waiting limousine. The driver held the door open. I didn't look back at the hotel. I looked forward, toward the suburbs, toward the mansion on the hill. The Trojan horse was on its way. And the gates were wide open. We had 4 hours before the limousine was scheduled to depart. The suite was quiet, not the peaceful quiet of a library, but the heavy, charged silence of a war room. Eleanor sat at the glass desk, her fingers flying across her iPad. I sat by the window, watching the yellow cabs weave through the traffic below like determined beetles. He's here, Eleanor said, not looking up. A moment later, there was a knock. The man who entered didn't look like a detective from the movies. He wore a crisp navy suit, carried a leather briefcase, and looked more like an accountant than a spy. His name was Mr. Vance. Ladies, he nodded, placing the briefcase on the coffee table. Eleanor had hired him 2 days ago. Initially, it was just to know the schedule. We needed to know exactly when Emily would arrive at the party, who she would be talking to, and where Arthur Sterling would be positioned. We wanted to time our entrance for maximum impact. But Mr. Vance had found something else. I did the standard background check on Mrs. Emily Roberts, Mr. Vance said, opening a thick folder. Standard procedure for my firm when we track a high-profile target. I assumed you wanted the full picture. We do, Eleanor said, pouring him a coffee. Well, he slid a stack of papers toward us. The schedule is the least of your worries. Or rather, the least of her worries. I picked up the first sheet. It was a spreadsheet, rows of numbers, dates, and vendor names. What is this? I asked. Mrs. Roberts is the director of marketing, Vance explained, his voice devoid of emotion. She oversees a budget of $3 million a year for events and promotional materials. Notice the recurring payments to Apex Creative Solutions? I looked. Thousands of dollars. Every month. Apex Creative Solutions doesn't exist, Vance said. It's a shell company registered to a P.O. box in New Jersey. The owner of that P.O. box is a man named Greg Miller. Who is Greg Miller? Eleanor asked, her eyes narrowing. Her college boyfriend, Vance replied. She approves the invoices for work that is never done. The money goes to Apex. Then, a portion of it finds its way into a private offshore account. I felt my stomach drop. She's stealing? Embezzlement, Vance corrected. Corporate theft. She's padding the production costs. But that's not all. He flipped to the next section of the file. These were emails, or rather, printed screenshots of internal HR complaints. Sterling and Partners prides itself on being inclusive, Vance said. But in the last 18 months, since Mrs. Roberts took over the department, 4 senior employees have been fired. All of them over the age of 50. My hand trembled as I held the paper. She creates a hostile work environment, Vance continued. She mocks them in team meetings. She calls them slow, outdated, digital dinosaurs. She writes them up for minor infractions until they quit or she has grounds to fire them. Then, she replaces them with 20-year-olds at half the salary. I read a testimony from a woman named Susan, age 58. Mrs. Roberts told me to dye my hair because looking at my gray roots made her depressed. She said I ruined the fresh vibe of the office. The paper crinkled in my grip. This wasn't just about a dress. This wasn't just about a bad mother-in-law relationship. This was a pattern. Emily didn't just hate me. She hated what I represented. She hated age. She hated the idea that anyone older than her deserved respect or space. She's a predator, Eleanor said softly. The amusement was gone from her voice. She's not just a bully, Martha. She's a criminal. I looked at the documents. If we use this, if we expose this, it wouldn't just be an embarrassment, it would be prison. David, I whispered. The name hung in the air. If Emily went down, David's life would collapse. The house, the lifestyle, the reputation, it was all tied to her income, her status. He was innocent of the theft, I hoped, but he was guilty of enjoying the fruit of it. Martha, Eleanor said, placing a hand on my arm. I know what you are thinking. You are thinking about protecting him. He is my son, I said. My eyes burned. If I do this, I destroy him too. He is already destroyed, Eleanor said firmly. He is married to a woman who steals, lies, and abuses people. How long do you think before she throws him under the bus to save herself? How long before she falsifies something in his name? I looked out the window again. The sun was setting, casting long, bloody shadows across the park. I remembered the envelope of cash David had slid across the counter. $500. That money. Was it dirty? Was it money she had stolen from the company? Was he trying to pay off his mother with stolen funds? He was weak. He was a coward. But was he a bad man? Or was he just asleep at the wheel of a car that was speeding toward a cliff? If I did nothing, he would crash with her eventually. If I acted, I could at least pull him out of the wreckage. It would hurt, but it might save his soul. My phone buzzed on the table. I picked it up, a notification from Instagram. It was Emily. I shouldn't have looked. But I did. It was a photo taken 10 minutes ago. She was in her dressing room, wearing a gold robe, holding a glass of champagne. She looked triumphant. The caption read, "Finally ready for the biggest night of the year. So glad the toxic energy has been cleared out of my life. No more old rags, no more drama, just me, my hubby, and the future we deserve. Sometimes you have to take out the trash to make room for the treasure. Number New Year New Me, number Boss Babe, number Bye Bye Boomer. Take out the trash." I stared at the words. She wasn't sorry, she wasn't scared, she was gloating. She was celebrating my erasure. She was calling her mother-in-law trash for the world to see. The last thread of guilt inside me snapped. It didn't make a sound, it just vanished. I put the phone down. "Mr. Vance," I said. My voice was calm. It sounded like the voice of a stranger, a strong, dangerous stranger. "Yes, ma'am? Can you make copies of these documents?" I asked. 3 sets, one for Eleanor, one for me. "And the third?" Vance asked. I looked at the dress form in the corner. The midnight velvet stood there, regal and imposing in the dim light. It looked like a judge's robe. "The third set," I said, "is for Mr. Arthur Sterling." Eleanor smiled. It was a small, tight smile. "Excellent." I stood up and walked to the dress. I ran my hand over the fabric. Tonight, this wouldn't just be a garment. It would be a shroud for Emily's career. "David will hate me," I said, More to myself than to them. He might, Eleanor said, standing beside me. For a while. But a surgeon has to cut the flesh to remove the tumor. It hurts, Martha, but it heals. I nodded. I went into the bathroom to start my makeup. I applied the lipstick, deep red, the color of war. The time for tears was over. The time for begging was over. Emily wanted a show. She wanted to talk about taking out the trash. Fine. I checked my reflection one last time. The woman looking back at me wasn't a victim. She was the executioner. Let's go, I said, stepping back into the living room. The curtain is about to go up. The 0 hour is approaching. The arrogant are still drunk on their fake victory. Are you eager to see the look on her face when the velvet curtain is pulled back? If so, comment number 1 below to let me know you are still walking this path with me. The double doors of the mansion were tall, mahogany, and imposing. Just a week ago, they had been slammed in my face. Tonight, the valet held them open for me. Good evening, madame, he murmured, bowing his head. I stepped onto the marble foyer. The heat of the house rushed to meet me, but this time, I didn't feel small. I felt the cold air of the winter night still clinging to the velvet of my dress, giving me a layer of armor. Beside me, Eleanor linked her arm in mine. Her grip was firm. Chin up, she whispered. Remember the walk. I took a breath. I didn't smell cookies or pine needles this time. I smelled money. I smelled the expensive cologne of the city's elite. We walked toward the ballroom. The sound of the party washed over us, a low roar of conversation, the clinking of champagne flutes, a string quartet playing something soft and unobtrusive. We stopped at the archway. The room was crowded. Men in tuxedos, women in sequins, and there, in the center of it all, was Emily. She was wearing gold again, a tight, shimmering gown that looked like it was made of liquid coin. She was holding a glass of champagne, gesturing animatedly to a man standing in front of her. The man was older, with silver hair and a posture that screamed authority, Arthur Sterling. I could hear Emily's voice cutting through the ambient noise. She was loud, confident, performing for her audience. It's all about curation, Arthur, she was saying, her hand resting familiarly on his arm. True style can't be bought. You either have an eye for excellence, or you don't. That's why I've worked so hard to filter out the undesirable elements from my life. I want this company to represent pure, unadulterated class. Arthur Sterling nodded politely, swirling his drink. He looked bored. Then, he looked up. His eyes swept past Emily's shoulder. They landed on the archway. They landed on me. He froze. The glass in his hand stopped moving. Emily noticed his distraction. She turned around, a frown marring her perfect makeup. Arthur, what are you? She saw me. Her eyes went wide. For a second, there was genuine confusion. She didn't recognize the woman with the silver bob, the diamond earrings, and the regal posture. She just saw a threat. Then, she recognized the dress. Her face twisted. The confusion melted into pure, white-hot rage. She excused herself from Mr. Sterling with a tight smile and marched toward us. Her heels clicked aggressively on the parquet floor. David, who had been talking to a waiter nearby, saw her move. He followed her gaze. He dropped his napkin. Emily reached us before anyone else noticed the tension. What are you doing here? She hissed. Her voice was a low growl, barely audible over the music. I told you, no visits, no contact. She stepped into my personal space, trying to use her height to intimidate me. But I didn't shrink. I didn't take a step back. I looked her dead in the eye. Hello, Emily, I said. My voice was calm, smooth. Happy New Year. Get out, she spat. I don't know how you got past security, or who you think you are wearing. That again. But you are leaving. Now. Before I call the police, and have you dragged out for trespassing. She grabbed my arm. Her nails dug into the velvet. Don't touch the merchandise, Eleanor said. Her voice was like a whip crack. Emily glared at Eleanor. And who are you? Her caretaker from the nursing home? Take her away. She's senile. She's ruining my night. Emily. The voice boomed across the room. It wasn't David. It was Arthur Sterling. He was walking toward us. He wasn't walking with the slow, bored pace he had used with Emily. He was walking with purpose. With urgency. Emily's face instantly transformed. She let go of my arm and plastered on a bright fake smile. "Oh, Arthur. I'm so sorry," she laughed. A nervous tinkling sound. "We have a bit of a situation. This is a distant relative." She's a bit confused. She wandered in off the street wearing some old costume. I was just escorting her out so she doesn't disturb you. Mr. Sterling didn't even look at her. He walked right past her. He pushed past David, who was standing there with his mouth open. He stopped 3 feet in front of me. The room went quiet. The string quartet seemed to fade into the background. People were watching. They sensed the shift in gravity. Mr. Sterling stared at my dress. His eyes were wide, tracing the neckline, the drape of the fabric, the way the black velvet seemed to absorb the light around it. He looked like a man who had just seen a ghost, or an angel. He slowly raised a hand, as if to touch it, then pulled back, respectful. "My God," he whispered. Emily stepped up beside him, desperate to regain control. "I know, it's hideous, isn't it? It smells like mothballs." I told her it was inappropriate for a black tie event, but she just... "Quiet, Mr. Sterling snapped. He didn't look at her, he looked at me. He looked at my face, then back at the dress. "This is the midnight velvet," he said. His voice shook slightly. "The 1995 Valenti original. The shadow of the moon." He looked up at me, his eyes filled with awe. "I have been looking for this dress for 20 years, he said. "I was at the auction in Paris when it was sold. I bid $80,000. And I lost. I lost to a private collector who refused to be named." A gasp rippled through the crowd. $80,000. Emily froze. Her mouth hung open, her lipstick looking suddenly too bright, too vulgar. 80,000. She stammered, but it's old. It's used." Mr. Sterling ignored her. He bowed his head to me, a deep, genuine bow of respect. "Madam," he said, "you are wearing a piece of history, a piece of art. It is priceless." He straightened up and looked me in the eyes. "May I ask," he said softly, "who are you? A collector, a curator? How do you come to possess such a treasure?" The silence in the room was absolute. Everyone was waiting. David was pale as a sheet. Emily looked like she was about to be sick. I smiled. It wasn't a smug smile. It was a sad, gentle smile. The smile of a mother who finally realizes her job is done. I glanced at Emily, then back at Mr. Sterling. "Me?" I said. My voice carried clearly through the silent room. "I am nobody special, Mr. Sterling. I'm just an uneducated countrywoman." I smoothed the fabric at my hip, the spot where the wine had been thrown. "I'm just a senile old mother-in-law," I continued, holding Emily's gaze. "Wearing a cheap, ragged piece of trash. At least, that is what the director of your marketing department told me when she kicked me out into the snow last week." Mr. Sterling's head snapped toward Emily. The look on his face wasn't awe anymore. It was confusion. And then, as the words sank in, it turned into something much, much darker. "She said what?" Mr. Sterling asked. His voice was dangerously quiet. "She told me I looked like a beggar," I said, keeping my tone conversational. "She said I smelled of poverty. And that I was embarrassing her brand." I took a step closer to Emily. She flinched. "Is that right, Emily?" I asked softly. "Did I embarrass you tonight?" Emily couldn't speak. She looked at Mr. Sterling, then at the crowd, then at David. No one moved to help her. She was alone on the stage she had built for herself. She squeaked. Mr. Sterling turned to Emily. His face was red. "You called this." He pointed at the masterpiece I was wearing. "Trash?" "I didn't know." Emily cried out, her voice shrill. "Arthur, please." "She didn't tell me. She just showed up looking." "I mean, how was I supposed to know?" "You are supposed to know because it is your job to know taste," Mr. Sterling roared. The sound echoed off the high ceilings. "But more importantly," Mr. Sterling said, stepping closer to her, his voice dropping to a hiss. "You kicked your own mother-in-law out into a blizzard? Because you didn't like her dress?" Emily trembled. "It wasn't like that. She was making a scene. She is mentally unstable." "I don't think she is the unstable one," Eleanor spoke up. She stepped forward, opening her clutch. "Mr. Sterling." I believe you and I have some business to discuss. My name is Eleanor Vance. I am the owner of the dress, and the owner of the company that was considering investing in your firm." Mr. Sterling's eyes widened. "Eleanor Vance? The venture capitalist?" "The same," Eleanor said coolly. "But after seeing how your management treats their family and their finances, I think we need to talk." She pulled out the file. The file with the bank statements. The file with the fake invoices. "Emily," Mr. Sterling said, not looking at the file yet. He didn't need to. He saw the fear in Emily's eyes. "Get out of my sight." "Arthur, wait." I said, "Get out." He turned his back on her. He turned back to me. "Madam," he said, offering me his arm. "Please, allow me to get you a drink. I would be honored if you would tell me the story of how you wore this tonight." I looked at David. He was standing in the shadows, staring at his shoes. He was fading away, just as I had predicted. I took Mr. Sterling's arm. "I would love a drink," I said. As we walked away, toward the center of the party, the crowd parted for us like the Red Sea. I heard the sound of sobbing behind me, followed by the heavy thud of the main doors closing. I didn't look back. The Queen had arrived, and the court was finally listening. The orchestra had stopped playing. The room was so quiet you could hear the ice melting in the crystal glasses. Mr. Sterling still had my arm tucked in his. He looked at Eleanor, who was standing like a statue of justice in her cream-colored trench coat. "Eleanor Vance," Mr. Sterling repeated. He looked from her to the file she was holding. "I should have known. There is only one person in Europe with the resources to outbid me on a Valenti." "It is a pleasure to finally meet you, Arthur," Eleanor said. She didn't smile. She extended the manila folder toward him. "Although, I wish the circumstances were better." "What is this?" Sterling asked, taking the folder. "Consider it a gift," Eleanor replied. "Or a warning. That folder contains the results of a forensic audit on your marketing department. Specifically, the activities of Mrs. Emily Roberts." Emily let out a strangled noise. She lunged forward, her hand reaching for the folder. "Arthur! Don't look at that. She's lying. These women are trying to sabotage me." Sterling pulled the folder out of her reach. He opened it. I watched his face. It went from confusion to shock, and finally, to a deep, terrifying crimson. He flipped the pages. He saw the shell company. He saw the fake invoices. He saw the HR complaints from the older employees she had bullied. "Apex Creative Solutions," Sterling read aloud. His voice was flat, deadly. Emily froze. Her face turned the color of ash. "Greg Miller," Sterling continued, reading the name of the shell company owner. "Your college boyfriend, isn't he? I remember meeting him at your wedding." "Arthur." "I can explain," Emily stammered. She was shaking now. It was for the good of the company. We needed flexible vendors. I was just cutting through the red tape. You were cutting checks to yourself." Sterling slammed the folder shut. The sound echoed like a gunshot. "You have been stealing from me, Emily. For 2 years." The crowd gasped. I saw people whispering behind their hands. I saw the look of disgust on the faces of the socialites Emily had tried so hard to impress. "And not just money," Eleanor added, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "She has been stealing dignity. The way she treated Martha? That is not an isolated incident. It is her management style. She despises anyone she deems useless or old." Sterling looked at me. He looked at the proud, silver-haired woman in the priceless dress. Then he looked at Emily, shivering in her gold sequins. "You called this woman trash," Sterling said to Emily. "But looking at this file, the only trash in this room is your professional ethics." "Arthur, please," Emily begged. Tears were streaming down her face now, ruining her makeup. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll fix it. I'll pay it back. Just don't do this here." She turned to me, desperation in her eyes. "Martha, tell him we're family. Tell him it was just a misunderstanding." I looked at her. A week ago, I would have folded. I would have smoothed things over to protect David. I would have lied to save her. But I remembered the snow. I remembered the cold. I remembered the $500 bribe. "We are not family, Emily," I said softly. "You made that very clear when you locked me out." Emily flinched as if I had slapped her. Sterling straightened his tie. He looked at his security guards standing by the entrance. He signaled them. "Emily Roberts," Sterling said. His voice was loud enough for the back of the room to hear. "You are fired. Effective immediately. You will vacate the premises now. And you will be hearing from my lawyers regarding the embezzlement charges in the morning." "No!" Emily shrieked. "You can't. My career. My reputation." "You have no reputation," Sterling said coldly. "Security. Escort her out." Two large men in black suits stepped forward. They didn't grab her, but their presence was enough. Emily looked around the room, searching for an ally. Searching for anyone who would stand up for her. Everyone looked away. They studied their drinks. They adjusted their cufflinks. She was social poison. Then, she looked at David. My son was standing by the buffet table. He looked small. He looked like a child who had broken a vase and was waiting for the punishment. "David!" Emily screamed. "Do something!" David looked at Mr. Sterling. He looked at the security guards. He looked at the crowd of powerful people judging his wife. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He just hung his head. "Coward," Emily spat. She turned and marched out, the security guards trailing her. The sound of her heels faded, leaving a heavy silence in the ballroom. "I apologize for the disturbance, everyone," Mr. Sterling announced. "Please, enjoy the party." The music started up again, hesitant at first, then louder. The guests went back to their conversations, the gossip already flying. "Martha," Mr. Sterling said, turning to me, "I am deeply sorry for what you endured. If there is anything I can do—" "You have done enough, Arthur," Eleanor said, stepping in. "We should be going. It has been a long night." I nodded. I felt drained. The adrenaline was fading, leaving a hollow ache in my chest. I had won, but it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like a funeral. "Thank you, Mr. Sterling," I said. I took Eleanor's arm. We turned to leave. We were halfway to the door when I felt a hand on my elbow. "Mom!" I stopped. I didn't turn around immediately. I knew that voice. It used to be the sweetest sound in my world. I turned slowly. David was there. His face was pale, his eyes red. He looked at me, then at the dress, then at Eleanor. He looked lost. "Mom," he said again. His voice cracked. I didn't know. About the money, about the company. "I swear. I believe you," I said. And I did. He wasn't a thief, he was just a fool. She's going to jail, isn't she?" he whispered. "We're going to lose the house. We're going to lose everything." He reached out and grabbed my hand. His palms were sweaty. "Mom, you have to help me," he pleaded. "Talk to Mr. Sterling. Please. Tell him to drop the charges. Tell him to give her a chance. If I lose this lifestyle, I don't know what I'll do." I looked at his hand clutching mine. He wasn't asking for forgiveness. He wasn't asking how I was. He was asking me to save his bank account. He was asking me to fix the mess he had allowed to happen. He was still the same David who had handed me that envelope of cash. "David," I said. I used my other hand to gently, but firmly, pry his fingers off my arm. One by one. "Mom?" He looked panicked. "I cannot fix this for you," I said. My voice was steady, but tears pricked my eyes. "I spent my whole life fixing things for you. I shielded you from every storm. And because of that, you never learned how to stand in the rain. But I'm your son." "Yes," I said. "You are my son. But you are also a man. And a week ago, when you had to choose between your wife and your mother, you made your choice. You chose to let me freeze." I took a step back. The distance between us was only a few feet, but it felt like an ocean. "You chose her, David. You enjoyed the luxury she provided, and you didn't ask where it came from. You enjoyed the status, and you didn't care who she stepped on to get it." "Mom, please," he sobbed. "I'm scared." "I know," I said. "It is scary to be responsible for your own life. But it is time you learned." I looked at him one last time. I memorized his face, the face of the boy I loved, hidden under the mask of the weak man he had become. "I love you, David," I whispered, "but I love myself enough to walk away." I turned around. "Let's go, I said. Eleanor squeezed my arm. We walked out of the ballroom, through the mahogany doors, and into the cold night air. Behind me, I heard my son calling my name. But I didn't stop, I didn't turn back. The snow had stopped falling, the sky was clear, and for the first time in years I could see the stars. June in Connecticut is nothing like December. The air is sweet. It smells of freshly cut grass and blooming hydrangeas. The biting wind that once cut through my coat is gone, replaced by a sunlight so thick and warm it feels like honey. 1, 2, 3, and lift. I tapped my hand against the wooden piano. 3 little faces looked up at me, grinning. They were my afternoon students, neighborhood kids who wanted to learn the basics. Their fingers were sticky with summer popsicles, and they hit the wrong notes half the time, but the sound was beautiful to me. I wasn't wearing midnight velvet today. I was wearing a simple linen dress, the color of oatmeal, with a loose cotton scarf. It probably cost $40, but when I caught my reflection in the polished black lacquer of the piano, I didn't see a poor woman. I saw a woman who was comfortable in her own skin. Okay, class dismissed, I smiled. Don't forget to practice your scales. They scrambled out the door, laughing, leaving the screen door to slap shut against the frame. I sighed, a happy full sound, and walked into my kitchen. It had been 6 months, half a year since the ballroom doors closed behind me. I poured myself a glass of iced tea and walked out onto my small patio. My new place wasn't a mansion, and it wasn't the cramped city apartment I used to hide in. It was a cottage, a small bright house with a garden, just a 10-minute walk from where Eleanor lived. Eleanor. She had been true to her word. She helped me sell my old place, helped me move, and even dragged me to this town. But she didn't pay my way. Independence is the best accessory, she had said. So, I used the money from my old apartment to buy this place outright. It was small, but it was mine. I sat in the wicker chair and looked at the phone on the table. News travels fast, even when you try to outrun it. Mrs. Higgins called me last week. She was still in the city, still gossiping by the mailboxes. She told me the mansion on the hill had been sold, foreclosed, actually. The Apex Creative Solutions scandal had been quieted down, thanks to Mr. Sterling wanting to avoid public embarrassment for the company. He didn't press criminal charges, provided Emily paid back every cent. She avoided prison, but she didn't avoid ruin. To pay it back, they sold the cars, they sold the furniture. They emptied the 401 KS. And finally, the house went, and David? The grapevine said they had separated for a month. Emily went to stay with her sister. David slept on a friend's couch. But recently, they were seen moving into a small, 2-bedroom apartment near the industrial district. David was working at a logistics firm, entry-level. Emily was taking freelance copywriting gigs under her maiden name. They were struggling. They were tired. But they were together. Part of me, the mother part, wanted to rush in. I wanted to bake a casserole, write a check, smooth the road for them. But I stayed in my wicker chair. I took a sip of tea. The ice clinked against the glass. I had joined a local club at the community center, Silver Stories, it was called. It was a group for seniors who had experienced financial or emotional abuse. The first time I went, I couldn't speak. I just listened to a woman named Clara talk about how her daughter bullied her into signing over her deed. The second time, I raised my hand. I told them about the Christmas party. I told them about the dress. I told them about the moment I realized my silence was hurting my son more than my voice ever could. Helping them, it healed something in me. I realized I wasn't a victim, I was a survivor. And survivors have a duty to warn the others. Knock, knock. The sound was soft, hesitant. I put my glass down. I wasn't expecting Eleanor until dinner. I walked to the front door. Through the mesh screen, I saw a silhouette. He looked different. David was wearing jeans and a polo shirt that had seen better days. His hair wasn't gelled into a helmet. It was loose, showing the gray at his temples that he used to dye away. He looked older. He looked tired. But for the first time in years, he looked real. "Mom?" he said. I opened the door. "Hello, David." He stood on the porch, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. He didn't try to hug me. He didn't breeze past me into the kitchen like he owned the place. He waited for an invitation. I was just in the area, he lied. We both knew he wasn't just in the area. "I wanted to see how you were settling in." "I am settling in just fine," I said. He looked past me, into the cozy living room with the piano and the vases of fresh flowers. "It looks nice," he said. "It looks like you." Thank you. Silence stretched between us. It wasn't the cold, sharp silence of the mansion. It was a quiet, awkward silence of two people trying to learn a new language. I'm working now, he said suddenly. At a warehouse. It's hard work. My back kills me. Honest work usually does, I said. He nodded. He looked down at his hands. They were rougher than I remembered. No manicure. No wedding ring. Oh wait. He was wearing a simple silicone band. The platinum one was gone. Sold, probably. We're trying, Mom, he whispered. Me and Em. It's really hard. We fight a lot about money, but I think she's starting to understand. I think I am too. He looked up at me. His eyes were wet. I miss you, he said. I looked at my son. I saw the remorse. I saw the shame. But I also saw the spine that was finally starting to grow. He wasn't asking for a loan. He wasn't blaming me for his downfall. He was standing there, owning his mess. I miss you too, David, I said gently. He swallowed hard. I don't suppose. Do you have any food? I haven't had a home-cooked meal in months. We mostly eat ramen, I smiled. A genuine warm smile. I made a pot roast, I said. There are carrots and potatoes. And I think there is an apple pie cooling on the counter. His face lit up. It was the look of the little boy who used to run home from school, hungry and eager. Can I come in? I stepped back and opened the door wide. Come in, David. Wash your hands first. He stepped over the threshold. He didn't bring his baggage. He didn't bring his ego. He just brought himself. We sat at the small kitchen table. I watched him eat. He ate with focus, savoring every bite. We didn't talk about the past. We didn't talk about Emily, or Mr. Sterling, or the lawsuits. We talked about the weather. We talked about his back pain. We talked about my piano students. It was just a dinner, but it felt like a treaty. I knew the road ahead for him was long. He had debts to pay and a marriage to rebuild from the ashes. I wouldn't fix it for him. I wouldn't offer him money. But I would offer him this: a chair, a meal, a listening ear. That was the job of a mother. To be the lighthouse, not the boat. Later, after he left, driving away in a dented Honda Civic, I stood on the porch and watched the fireflies dancing in the twilight. I felt peace, deep, solid peace. I thought about the midnight velvet dress. It was hanging in the back of my closet, covered in plastic. I hadn't worn it since that night. I didn't need to. I didn't need a designer gown to feel like a queen. I didn't need a mansion to feel rich. I turned to go inside, catching my reflection in the glass one last time. The woman staring back wasn't Martha the victim. She wasn't Martha the burden. She was just Martha. And that was enough. Thank you for walking this road with me. Before I go, I want to leave you with this. Never let anyone price tag your soul based on the clothes you wear, the car you drive, or the gray in your hair. Our value isn't stitched into fabric. It is forged in the fire of our dignity and the kindness of our hearts. Love your children, love them fiercely, but never ever forget to love yourself. You cannot pour from an empty cup. And please remember, when you see injustice, when you see someone being treated as less than human, speak up, even if your voice shakes. Because silence in the face of cruelty isn't politeness. It's a crime. This is Martha, signing off. Good night. The story you just heard has had its names and locations changed to protect the identities of those involved. We're not sharing this to judge anyone, but in the hope that someone out there will pause and reflect. How many mothers are silently suffering in their own homes? Honestly, I wonder. If you were in my shoes, what would you do? Would you stay quiet to keep the peace? Or would you speak up and fight to reclaim your voice? I'd really love to hear your thoughts on this story from Grandma's Secrets, or any feedback you have that could help us make our content even better. God always blesses the brave, and I truly believe courage leads us toward better days. For now, I'm leaving 2 of the most loved stories from our channel on the end screen. I think they'll surprise you. Thank you for staying with me until this very moment. If this story touched your heart, please hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss what's coming next.